know what people are actually going to do. My life is ruined. Does anybody understand how ruined my life is? I'm sick of it. I don't want to listen to people tell me that I'm a conspiracy theorist. They don't know what it's like to be me. My life is ruined.
Well, watching that meltdown helps me understand just how much of a Zionist she is. Perpetual victim, everything's about her. That was Laura Loomer, who, well, has the president's ear when it comes to things like hiring and firing people in the White House, or what we should do with foreign policy. But nonetheless, one of the nation's biggest Islamophobes has been funding the nation's largest Muslim civil rights and advocacy organizations. And it's all thanks to her crash out following her Twitter ban in 2018. Cenk, your 2 cents before we get to the details?
I hadn't seen that video before. It's gonna be daily viewing from now on.
That was fun.
That was super fun. It's all about me as the victim. Y'all cry more, bitch. Okay, so why do I say that? You'll see later the things she said about me in particular and Muslims in general. She's the worst bigot in the country, and media's like, what? She didn't say anything against Jews. She's perfectly fine. All right.
So if you can recall, Laura Loomer was permanently banned from Twitter in late November of 2018. And that was due to her anti-Muslim comments, her Islamophobic statements. She decided to put all the blame on the Council on American-Islamic Relations, otherwise known as CAIR, and their Florida chapter in particular. She alleged that they were fully responsible for her ban on social media and that they were trying to censor conservative voices. Now, she later sued. She sued them, and as you can guess, it didn't go so well for her. And the case quickly was dismissed by a judge who called her nonsensical. And even looking at the notice of removal, you can see, just how delusional Laura Loomer was and is. So although plaintiffs do not expressly assert how much in damages they are seeking in their frivolous lawsuit, plaintiffs allege that CAIR's conduct caused Loomer's income to be reduced by 90%, as well as other damage such as the loss of future employment and speaking opportunities, as well as reduced access to online and other resources for publishing, fundraising, and financial services. I would just venture to say that her own open, overt behavior is what leads to her losing job opportunities, but I digress. Loomer didn't give up. She actually appealed 3 separate times before the US Court of Appeals had enough and affirmed a $125,000 judgment on behalf of CAIR and CAIR Florida. And at this point, CAIR, they even threw her a bit of a bone because that's what she was ordered to pay, $125,000. CAIR comes back and says, you know what? We're gonna reduce the amount that she owes us. Isn't ridiculous. No, but this is don't amazing. No, I'm glad they did it because it gives you a sense of how vicious and vile she is and how much she lies about CAIR and Muslims in general, of course. So as part of a settlement reached in 2023 to address her outstanding debt, CAIR agreed to let Loomer pay a total of $73,500 in monthly installments, among other terms.
Why doesn't she go ask her daddy in Israel? Why doesn't Netanyahu pay your bills? That's all you ever do is try to pleasure him. So yeah, what are you reducing it for? Why doesn't Paul Singer or Haim Saban pay her bills?
So for a while, things were fine. Didn't seem like anything had gone awry after that agreement and settlement had been reached. She had been quietly making monthly payments to CAIR in the amount of $2,400 per payment. Now the story starts to get kind of fun, okay? Because Loomer tried yet again to get out of having to pay what she owes to CAIR. And so after Florida Governor Ron DeSantis declared that CAIR is a terrorist organization, she tried to use that or exploit that for her own purposes. So the court ruled against her when she challenged whether she still has to pay CAIR, the settlement that was reached in court. The self-proclaimed proud Islamophobe lost. And the court said, no, you have to finish paying them back. So we'll end with the final word from CAIR litigation director Lena Masri. who really had to make it sting for Loomer. Here's what she says. Since Ms. Loomer began sending her payments to CAIR in 2023, our attorneys have used her funds to provide legal representation to the American Muslim community and advance free speech, religious freedom, and civil rights for everyone in our nation. We look forward to receiving Ms. Loomer's final payments and using the funds to once again protect American Muslims and our neighbors from hate.
That's awesome. Great job, CAIR. So Laura Loomer said this about me dozens of times, about Muslims, hundreds, maybe thousands of times. She wrote just yesterday on X about me, all you do is lie. It must be an Islamic quality. Maybe it's in your DNA like a defect.
Can you imagine if you flipped it on her and you said that about Jewish people, which would be, by the way, disgusting. It would be a disgusting thing to say about an entire group of people. But for some reason in this country, it's totally okay for Laura Loomer to make broad generalizations, stereotypes, and smears about an entire religious and ethnic group.
Yeah, well, that's exactly what I wrote on X. I said, imagine if I talked about her Jewish DNA being defective, and she has a Jewish quality about her that makes her lie all the time.
I mean,
well, I would be canceled forever and ever. I would never be put on another media show ever again, and all of the national media would say this is a terrible anti-Semite and the worst person in the world. And look, by the way, if you said that, you are a terrible person. You shouldn't believe that. You shouldn't think that, and it isn't true, right? She says it, not a peep. Randy Fine said, let's murder everyone in Gaza. 2 different times, nuke them and starve them to death. No censure, no national scandal, no nothing. Mark Levin talks all the time about how Muslims are the problem and Muslims are defective and Muslims are terrorists and they love violence, etc. No problems, he's still on air everywhere, he's on has a national television show. The pro-Israel first guys who are deeply, the most bigoted people in the whole country, who despise Muslims and proudly say it on air all the time. Never any consequences. So that's why I love this story, okay? There are laws in this country, and CAIR, great lawyers, way to go, okay? And so I love that there were consequences in this case. But if it's up to the national media, there would never be consequences for Israel first. And they would say, if you criticize anyone who's Jewish or anyone who's even supports Israel, you should be canceled for the rest of time. You want to say the worst things in the world about Muslims? Jake Tapper and Dana Bash don't care at all. They're like, atta girl, way to go, right? Now they didn't say that, but I don't see them getting outraged by Randy Fine or Laura Loomer or Mark Levin. Never saw them talk anything about those people ever, ever, ever. Never a national story. No one at the New York Times cares. No one in media cares because, it's only Muslims. And then they all pretend that they care so much about bigotry.
You know
but
why,
only
though, right?
if it's against Jewish people, and then they use it to eliminate every opponent of Israel. But if it's against Muslims or Christians, shut up. No one cares.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think you know why. I don't know if
because they all love Israel and they're obsessed with protecting Israel. So they love to smear Muslims and everyone else. And when Laura Loomer does it, they're like, atta girl, inside their heads, and they know it.
Hold on. Let's be fair in that I distinctly remember Jake Tapper being kind of vicious to Laura Loomer. So it's not like they like Laura Loomer. However, your general point stands. And the reason why, there's absolute loathing and hate for anybody who's critical of Israel is because our corporate media is owned and controlled by Zionists. It's just the truth. It is, it's the truth. And if it's not, what happens? What happened to TikTok? What happened to CBS?
Well, I mean, at this point, CBS and TikTok are self-avowed. Yeah,
that's exactly right. Is it anti-Semitic to say it? I mean, they're the ones who say it out loud all the time, every single day.
So look, you're right about Jake Tapper. I don't remember it exactly, but I have a faint memory in my head that he has criticized Laura Loomer, and I would believe that. And I would believe even Dana Bash would be concerned about these comments that are anti-Muslim, etc. But the point that I'm making there, guys, is do they make a big deal out of it? Do they make a giant national scandal, congressional hearings, etc.? Have you heard about it 24/7 that these people are viciously bigoted against Muslims? No, maybe you hear about it once and that's it, it's done, right?
Yeah.
But if anyone says anything critical about Israel, it becomes just a gigantic story.
Yeah.
And there's an enormous effort to eliminate that person from the national conversation. Oh my God, and maybe it's just, hey, you know what? like just based on how they grew up, they think they've been trained that the whole world is out to get them, and they're all about to be murdered any second, and that everyone hates them. So they're animated about that. So anytime they see 1% of that, they're like, that's it. We got to make that the biggest story in the world. But they haven't been trained to care about Muslims or anyone else. So when they see that, they're like, oh yeah, that's unfortunate. Let's never talk of it again, okay? Because they just don't care. They don't care that these guys have been spreading anti-Muslim bigotry our whole lives. And do they participate in it? Well, I would argue that they do in some ways. So they do in that whenever they talk about people being killed in Israel, they make it seem like it was the greatest tragedy in the history of humankind. This worst thing that's happened since the Holocaust. And by the way, there's truth to that, right? So it was a great tragedy what happened on October 7th. So at that point, I got no problems. Then they turn around and Israel's done 70 October 7th, and it's barely a story. They don't seem to care about it at all, at all. All I ever see them talking about is how they were aggrieved by people who are against the genocide. And everybody against the genocide is an anti-Semite or some other garbage like that I see from them. So if they're pretending they care about Muslims the same way that they care about their own people, that's a joke, and everybody knows it's a joke. I don't think they could even say that with a straight face. So has anyone called for a censure of Randy Fine for wanting to murder several million Muslims? And isn't it weird that no one in media has called for that, let alone anyone in government? Isn't that super weird? But they all thought it was perfectly normal that when Ilhan Omar said it's all about the Benjamins, about lobbyists and a guy named Benjamin. Right? They're like anti-Semite, the worst person in the world. She should be censured. This is a giant national scandal. Meanwhile, Laura Loomer, Mark Levin, etc. like, oh, I hate the Muslims are defective, etc. Like, minor little nuisance, no big deal. Oh, she's at the White House. She got a bunch of people fired. So did you ever think why she's getting people fired? She's getting them fired for opposing Israel. But you never do a story about that because you love Israel and you really don't care about the rest of us. And that's the moral of that story. Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.